stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. Oops. All right, so we have a new associate member tonight, and I want to introduce him. He's Matt Gilley. He's gotten a haircut for us, specially for us. He says it's because winter's over, but winter was over a while ago, so I think he got it for us.
Today was the first 70-degree day, so that means it's over.
Matt, do you want to say anything about yourself and just share anything that you'd like to share?
I appreciate being given the opportunity to serve on the planning board. I serve on several other committees on the town, and thanks for having me.
Okay, wonderful.
Matt's a fisherman, and it's really great to have his view on the board. He does his homework. He's articulate, and he adds a lot to whatever committee he's with. So I want to just shout out, thank you for
Thank you.
offering your time and willingness to be a public servant. You're now fully a public servant on a judicial board.
Ooh.
Okay, we have a quorum. Courtney, Dan, myself, and Lori. If we need another member, Christine,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask her if she would stand in. And with that, let's start with Christine introducing board members.
Yeah, Christine Donovan Hall, Orr's Island.
Lori Rice, Great Island.
Amy Heibel, Harpswell.
Dan Hobeck, Orr's Island.
Matt Gilley, Cundy's Harbor.
Courtney Snellings, Orr's Island.
I'm Mark Hireman, the town planner, and I'm hungry, and excuse me. I've had lunch yet today. This is lunch.
And we have our codes officer, assistant planner in the back, and our camera person also. So thank you to those who you can't see, but who are nonetheless an integral part of this effort. Old business, none. New business, election of officers. I've never done this
You want
before.
me to hold the election?
Yeah, would you please do that? I've never done this.
Surely.
That sounds like a good idea.
The planning board bylaws call for the election of a chair and a secretary. In the past, there has been some discussion about why there's a secretary, but for better or for worse, there is. It has also been the board's practice to elect a vice chair to serve when the chair is unavailable to serve. And obviously, in the last year, the vice chair has filled in a couple of times, so it's not a meaningless position. And so, okay.
I'm so glad
Do
he's.
we have any nominations for the position of chair of the planning board? And it's, I believe in the bylaws, it is actually for a one-year term.
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Any nominations?
I would nominate my compatriot on the left here, Amy, to be the chair.
Okay. Any other nominations for the position of chair? If not, would someone make a motion to cast one ballot for the election of Amy as chair?
So moved.
So moved.
All those in favor? 5-0, Amy didn't raise her hand. Okay. Nominations for vice chair. Again, it's also for a one-year term. Do I hear any nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Dan Hobeck for vice chair.
I will second that nomination.
Any other nominations for vice chair?
You okay with that?
Yeah.
Nominations closed. Would somebody again make a motion to cast
I move-
one vote for them?
I move that Dan be nominated that Dan be the vice chair and that we take a vote.
Okay,
Okay?
all those in favor? Again, 5-0, Dan abstaining. The bylaws call for the position of a secretary to the board. Most of the administrative duties are handled by staff that would relate to the secretary position, correspondence, minutes, etc. But for some reason, somebody thought it was a good idea to have a secretary, and there may in fact be cases where there's a need for official correspondence and a legal case or some such thing. Do I hear a nomination for the position of secretary for a one-year term?
Who wants to do that? I can,
Don't everybody put
I
your...
can do it,
I was gonna say I could do it too.
yeah.
All right, does somebody want to make a motion to nominate one of the two volunteers?
Whichever one, it doesn't matter.
I will move Lori because
Yeah.
she's a permanent board
Yeah.
member, but I really hope that Christine can step up at some point, and she comes to all the meetings, she has, she pays attention, she offers great comments, so, but given that Lori is a
Yeah.
regular member, I'll make that
Any
nomination.
other nominations for the position of secretary?
Nope.
Somebody want to make a motion to cast one vote for
So moved.
Laurie Rice as the secretary?
I say.
Was that just
All in
second?
favor?
Oh, okay.
Yep.
5-0.
We could have nominated Matt.
Well, I don't think
No,
so.
wait.
He wouldn't
Wait,
have accepted the
can-
nomination, but we
I wouldn't have accepted.
Amy, just for the record, the rules say that Matt has to have been sworn in
Ah,
to his position,
thank you.
and you have done that, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah, just for the record, so you are an official member of the planning board and can vote. All right, it's
Thank
back
you.
to you.
All right.
All right, so we have completed item 3, election of officers, and now we're on to the 4th item, which is our first application. We have 2 applications tonight. The first one is James Herrick, who is the applicant. He's representing Tyler McLaughlin, 47 Abner Point Road, map 22, lot 52. Just for those who are watching on television, it's good to make sure that you understand what we have in front of us. So I'll just say that the applicant is seeking permission to remove a nonconforming home and construct a new nonconforming house in its place. We learned on our site walk that he had tried to rehabilitate the existing house, but it wasn't possible for him to do that. The lot contains a little over 15,700 square feet with 128 feet of frontage on Abner Point Road. It has about 150 feet frontage on Mackerel Cove. The existing home is located in Commercial Fishing 1 and Commercial Fishing 2 districts. And it's non-conforming with respect to the 75-foot shoreline setback and the southerly property line setback. It is conforming to the property line setback with the road and the northerly property line setback. Commercial Fishing 1 does not allow residences. Commercial Fishing 2 does. This house has been there for a long time. It is a grandfathered use and therefore an allowed use. So the applicant proposes reconstructing the home in essentially the same location as the existing home. He's going to put in a new septic system. And so the new house will still be non-conforming with respect to the shoreline and southerly property line setbacks, but the shoreline non-conformity will potentially be reduced. So this house has been there for a long time. He's essentially hired an excellent architect to design a new house. He's building it in essentially the same location. And we have two possibilities for action tonight to take on this application. The first one is for the planning board to decide if it wants to exercise its jurisdiction over this application. And the second is to allow the code enforcement officer to retain jurisdiction. So those are our two options. If we opt to have the planning board retain jurisdiction, then that moves us into a review process. If we opt to allow the codes office to take this application and do its due diligence with it, then we are removed from the process essentially. So those are our two decisions. And what I'd like to do first is, I've summarized the project. I'd like to hear from the applicant if he has anything, or his representative has anything that they'd like to share with the board.
Yeah.
I guess, how are y'all doing tonight? Thank you for giving me the time to speak. I guess mainly, I'm a commercial fisherman myself. I purchased this property because it is commercial fishing zoned. I'm a younger generation person, and I feel that the access to the water for future generations is something that has been hindered over recent years, and my ability to fish has been hindered as well coming from south of here. And I really would like the opportunity to raise my family in this area and provide the property has a wharf, and I want to be able to fix up the wharf and the dock and allow the younger generations that start with their lobster businesses with student licenses and stuff like that an opportunity and a place to operate out of, because there are so few wharfs, and the guys that are established and making a living, they have access and dominate these places. So I'd really like to be able to offer the opportunity to the future generations, and as well as just keep the commercial fishing heritage of this area.
Thank
And
you.
that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Anybody else? Any questions from the board? All right, I'd like to make a motion.
Ma'am, abutters?
Yes, abutters, anybody?
Neighbors?
I guess I included that with anybody else. Is there anyone else, abutters, or anyone associated with the nearby properties or this project that would like to comment? I'm seeing no one. So thank you very much. So is the board willing to accept a motion?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think that the summary from the town planner talking about what the proposed reconstruction will do, the shape of the lot, the size of the non-conforming footprint, and other options indicate that what is being proposed certainly seems to be about the best option there. So because of that, based on that, I would move, shall I move it?
Go for it.
Okay. I move that the planning board remands the application of Tyler McLaughlin to reconstruct a non-conforming structure on Lot 52 on map 22 that will continue to be non-conforming with respect to required shoreline setback and southern property line setbacks to the code enforcement officer for processing, with the understanding that the approved plan will move the replacement structure toward the road as proposed in the application. If the proposed reconstruction deviates substantially from this proposal, the town planner shall require that the revised proposal be re-reviewed by the planning board to determine if the board wants to take jurisdiction for the review of the application.
Thank you. Thank you. Any second to that motion?
Second? Yeah.
All right, Courtney seconds. All in favor? Thank you. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Mary Ann Nave.
I'm sorry I couldn't get out here fast enough. However, I'm
Mary Ann, do you want to introduce yourself?
Mary Ann Nate. On the Conservation Commission, and I sort of go over these plans as they come out. And I just realized that I have no problem with the plan, but as I look through the application requirements, we do have the erosion control plan spelled out. However, we do have a new ordinance in town, not new, a couple years old, that talks about low-impact development. And I realize this is in the fishing zone, but I also know how important it is that we have clean water. So if there's any way possible, as part of your construction, that you can vegetate any areas with bushes or something more than grass, I think that would go a long way. And I just thought this might be the opportunity to mention that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes?
My planning was to basically.
Would you, Tyler, would you
Go to the
come to
mic.
the?
Only because we have to have it on record.
Yeah.
So my response to that was that the plan, it was to install bushes and vegetation into the bank because I was gonna help shore up the bank and make it so it doesn't erode away in the future. Okay.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
I've spoken with an arborist about that, and we've gone through that plan, but I think that'd be like the final stage.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, yes. And we appreciate your being here and willing to take this on, and
Thank you for keeping it open to future generations of fishermen, too. As a fellow commercial fisherman, that's greatly appreciated and greatly needed in this town.
Yeah, it sure is.
It's needed across the seaboard.
Yeah, yeah.
would you like to say that again slower? Like it's,
Thank you again, as a fellow commercial fisherman, for keeping that open for future generations. That's something that the entire state and town is losing on a rapid pace, and it's much needed and much appreciated as a fellow commercial fisherman.
Yeah. Yeah.
thank you.
Great.
Good.
She'll be
All right.
working with the codes enforcement officer from here on out, so good
Yeah.
luck with everything.
Yeah. She's
Okay.
right behind you, one of them. Yep.
All right, so we're moving on now to our next application. And this application is from GEI Consultants, who is representing the town of Harpswell. The application is to install a boat launch and related facilities at Mitchell Field. I want to, just for absolute transparency, say that my husband, Spike Heibel, is the chair of the Mitchell Field Committee, and I'm going to ask Christine to just read to us the bylaws for, that really regulate whether or not I can participate in this meeting legally, and then I'm going to ask the board to just discuss amongst themselves whether they want me to participate at all. So,
Okay, so this is from Section 5, conflict of interest, means direct or indirect. I believe it's pecuniary interest. And direct interest shall be when the applicant is a member of the board or an owner or abutting or other property that is subject to the application or directly affected by the board's decision. Indirect interest shall be when the board member has an interest the application due to being an officer, director, partner, associate, employee, or stockholder of a corporate applicant or other business entity. Also included shall be when a board member is part of the applicant's immediate family, an employer of the applicant or of the applicant's immediate family, or is he employed by the member of the applicant's immediate family. Immediate family shall mean spouse, parents, siblings, children, and grandchildren. And that's about it for that entire section.
so Christine, would you explain what pecuniary is?
Yes, I will. I brought it up because I was like, I don't know what that means.
Financial.
Yeah, it has to do. Okay, it means concerning or involving money and also monetary, economics, and financial are synonyms. So that's what it means. Has to do with money.
Okay, all right. So does,
The question then becomes, do you have a financial interest in the outcome of this application?
thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Do I have a financial interest in the outcome of this application? Okay, so I just wanted to state that for transparency, and if the board has any comments, I will say I would like to stay involved in this, but I am asking the board out of respect for the board and transparency to the public, whether or not you feel that it's appropriate for me to continue with this review. And I'm happy to step aside or stay with it.
It hasn't been my experience that you don't follow the ordinances, no matter how you might personally feel about them. We all have opinions. We think some of the ordinances should be different, but they're not. It's our responsibility to follow what's there. I have no objection to your being a part of this. I haven't seen any reason to think that you would not uphold the ordinances as they're written. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else?
You didn't answer the question about whether you had a pecuniary interest.
Oh,
Just,
I do not. I do not.
then
No.
I have no objection
Thank you.
as well.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. If there's no financial interest or benefit, then I think we're fine.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, I'm happy to continue on. I want to give everybody a chance to comment. I know, Matt, this is your first meeting, and I really don't want to put you on the spot. So just feel free to, ask questions, whatever. Ask questions, do your full participation here. All right, so we have in front of us a proposal. This is a very substantial proposal, at least in terms of its documentation, for the town to construct a boat launch. And the town, even though it is the entity that is proposing this project on town-owned land, still has to come forward and comply with the ordinance that the public at town meeting has adopted. So the town has to comply with the legal ordinances and regulations that the town's meeting has given it to comply with. So that's what we're doing here. We're proposing to construct, we, the town of Harpswell, to construct a boat launch, a trailer parking area, and related facilities at Mitchell Field. The boat launch is going to be located on the north side of the existing causeway. That means if you're facing the causeway, it's to your right. And a parking area for vehicles with boat trailers will be constructed to support the use of the launch and the so-called truck turnaround on a piece of property that's east of where the bandstand currently exists right now. There is an existing gravel road through the lower meadow that will be reconnected to the waterfront. It's not currently usable, and it will provide access to the boat launch. The application for the project prepared by GEI details the proposed improvements to the site. The boat launch is in the Mitchell Field Marine Business District. The proposed trailer parking area is in the Interior District. Government facilities are allowed in both districts with planning board approval. And part of what we're going to be looking at tonight is whether this application meets the standards of Section 15 of the Site Plan Review Ordinance. First off, I'd like to hear, with the board's approval, if we could hear from the applicant, and then we can ask questions of the applicant. All right?
Dan
So-
Bannon from GEI Consultants is here to speak to the application.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mark. I should have asked if you have anything that you'd like to add to that.
Nope.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me here tonight. Again, my name's Dan Bannon. I'm with GEI Consultants. I'm the town's engineer for this project. And I'll really just go through the plan kind of at a high level and describe the major elements of it, and then would be happy to answer any questions after that. As was described, the project involves the installation of a new boat launch at Mitchell Field. The existing causeway from the former Navy Pier comes out on the waterfront here, and the new boat launch will be constructed on the north side of that causeway. That location provides good protection from the prevailing winds, so it will be a good usable launch in the majority of conditions. It's a 20-foot wide boat launch, so that will allow for use by recreational boaters as well as commercial boaters. It will provide all-tide access, and there is, as part of a separate project that was previously being considered by the town but is not on the table right now, there was a previous proposal to add a gangway and floating dock system at this site. That's not happening right now, but we are in preparation for that potentially happening in the future, constructing a small stub pier that's out here at the far end of the causeway and pedestrian access out to that stub pier. There will be 3 parking spaces on the causeway for short-term parking and ADA access to the causeway area and the boat launch. And then there will be 28 new truck trailer parking spaces up here at the truck turnaround area. The access to the boat launch will be via the gravel access road that was constructed during the pier demolition project. So vehicles that are coming to the site to access the launch, they will use that access road to get to the launch. The trucks and trailers coming through to the launch will thus avoid going through the recreational area on site. I will say the project is being constructed with 2 grants through the Small Harbor Improvement Program from Maine DOT. So this is a state-supported project. It does, because of the amount of impact within the coastal wetland, it does require permits from state and federal agencies, Maine DEP and Army Corps. We have applied for and received our permit from Maine DEP for the upland stormwater related work. The work or the permits for the boat launch itself are still outstanding. We are expecting those to come in very soon, but as of tonight, we don't have those yet. So we'll certainly keep the board informed of when those come in, and I know you'll want to see those final permits to give an official final approval. So I think with that, Mark, did you have anything else to say?
No, the only thing I would say is you all have the application, and GEI went through the standards of approval and addressed each one of those in terms of how the project meets them. A number of those are essentially not applicable because there's no power, there's no lighting, there's no sewer, there's no water. A number of the normal site plan review approval standards are really not applicable to the project. Editorially, this is a project that was identified in the 2005 master plan for Mitchell Field. Jim is sitting over here, who was involved in the original feasibility study to develop the original plans for this. I'm going to say 9 or 10 years ago. Don Miskell and Spike, who is not related to me but to other members of the board, have been involved in the project. So this is something that has been in the works for almost 2 decades now.
Thank you.
It's exciting to finally get going on it.
Yeah.
Certainly needed.
So does the board have any questions? Anyone else would like to speak to
Lori
explain?
has a
the-
question.
And just a couple clarification questions is all. I love the fact that it's meant to handle recreation as well as commercial boats. And I had asked at the site plan, what size commercial boats maximum do you think potentially could be launched there?
So at this site, I mean, really anything that's trailerable could be launched here. You might see, if the town wants to allow commercial haulers to launch out of this site, certainly at low tide, some of the larger vessels might not be able to launch, but with a 20-foot wide ramp, you could launch, 40-plus foot boats.
Okay. On that, let's just go for hypotheticals, a 35-foot boat. And I'm just trying to think of the tractor trailers, the commercial boat haulers. Where would they turn around in order to back up down the pier? Just trying to get a visual. Would they come around by the administrative building, the old one, and then go down? Or is there a place down at the end to turn around?
Well, so coming in from Harpswell Neck Road, they would come onto the access road here,
Right.
loop around, and then drive straight onto the causeway.
Okay.
There's a turnaround on the causeway. So this, as you can see, the causeway's widened out toward the north
Right.
to allow that to be constructed. But yes, there's a turnaround on the causeway that would allow that to happen.
If I'm looking at the drawing, it said with the parking area, it's 34 feet and then another 12 feet, so that's 46 feet? Am I looking
I'm
at that
not
right?
sure exactly what area.
I'm looking at where the parking areas are,
Okay, right here.
and then it looks like there's a 12-foot line before, trying to make sure I get the measurements right, is what I'm trying to do. If you want to hold
Yeah,
on.
are you looking at,
Dan, do you have the detailed drawing of the head
I
of the
do.
causeway
Looks like
there?
she's CO2, is that the number?
Yeah, I'm on CO3, actually.
Oh, CO3, okay.
Is where I'm at. I'm just trying to get my head on the turning radius that's available is what I'm trying to do.
yeah, so there's 34 feet here.
Right.
Of paved width on the causeway, and then the new extension would extend another 26 feet from the outer edge of the new launch area.
Okay.
So there is actually a little bit more width there that I'm not quite capturing, but that would add up to a total of 60 feet.
Okay, that's why I was looking at, it's like short, but 60 feet's a lot more sufficient then. Okay, I was just trying to think of the swing radius that's necessary for that size equipment to make sure it actually can back up and accommodate.
Mhm.
I posed this question to Billy Saxton, who works for Dolphin Marina and launches a lot of the boats in the area. And I used my boat for reference, which is a 38-foot boat, and he cannot make the turn with that boat there. He said he would have to pull down past the administrative building, kind of like he was going to be exiting, and then back from there, but he wouldn't be able to utilize the turnaround at the boat launch.
I talked to Billy too.
Yeah.
So same reason,
Yeah.
he hauls my boat.
Yep.
So, that's the concern, because he hauls a lot of boats in the area, and he's good. He's really good
He's
at
the
what he
best.
does.
Hands down.
He's working tonight,
He-
otherwise I invited
He
him.
can do it, he said. He did say that they had the ability to do it, but it's not as easy as he had originally hoped it might be. He was hoping that he would be able to utilize that turnaround like we were talking. And he will be able to for some of the smaller boats, but he was concerned anything over 30 feet, 35 feet, they won't be able to make that turn with the angles and stuff.
And so this is just more a question of transparency, because if we're saying to the community in Harpswell, you can launch this size boat there, I want to make sure we are accurate on what we're presenting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess a couple of things I'd say in response to that. So the entire paved area here,
Uh-huh.
the center island, that's just painted striping. So that can all be driven over. So there could, when necessary, be some less efficient turning maneuvers, but there could be ways to maneuver a larger vehicle in there. Yeah, some of those larger trucks, it may be more challenging to launch here. There may even be cases where someone would, with a especially large trailer, have to back down the entire way. That's not really something that this is designed for. You'd want to carefully monitor that operation if it needs to happen. But if that does need to happen at times, that may be something the town can work to manage.
So is this plan set in stone, or could it be modified? I realize we're talking money here, of course. Could it be modified? I mean, we don't have a lot of public launch sites that I can think of in Harpswell that handle big boats. Am I right on that, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I was thinking that this would look like a place where people actually would be able to put in their larger vessels, say their commercial vessels. But if it's not going to do the job, can it be modified to make it so that it does do the job?
Well, so I guess I'd say, first, it's not 100% final. It's not set in stone. However, we do have applications into DEP and Army Corps, and so we can't change much at this point. Otherwise, we'd need to reopen that review process. I think the best thing that we could do would be to start by, if there are specific vehicles the town would want us to look at, larger vehicles that a commercial hauler might have, just make sure that we check those turning movements and see if we can show that it is possible, or if there are concerns, maybe we need to consider some modifications to the plan. There may be ways that we could slightly widen the paved area without modifying the overall footprint. But yeah, we need to look at that carefully.
I would just hate to see this be done and doesn't quite fit it, and then we have people with 38, foot boats or whatever that thought they would have a place to go, but it doesn't work. So that's just what I was thinking. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any type of structure or like fence separating the pedestrian walkway from where the trailers and stuff will be backing down? Or is it just like a painted line, I guess? You know what I
There's going to be a curb line. We weren't planning a fence, but there would be a grade separation with a curb.
Okay, because that was the concern that Billy had brought up, was the concern when they're backing that. They, like I said, they said they could do it, but they were concerned about pedestrians and stuff like that. So maybe if a small fix would be just if you ran a rope back down there as like a fence, I'm sure we've all seen them, to kind of prevent pedestrians from stepping out where they're not supposed to be at a bad time.
Yeah, and I could see another potentially simple solution here would be, maybe once we get to this end, we end the curb and we have it all be at grade and just have that pedestrian area be painted. So if a truck comes that really needs that extra wide turn, it could have that extra 6 feet.
Yeah.
So that's something we could pretty easily do. Again, we'd still have to check that would work for some of those specific larger vehicles.
Matt, I'll reach out to Billy on that, or do you want to?
I talk to him several times a week, so I don't mind.
Just
I could actually have him
He's good.
haul my boat anyway,
just
so.
his judgment. All right, that helps. So just trying to get ahead on what's going on and make sure it accommodates what the community really wants to have.
So Dan, I have a question regarding the financing and the grant funds for this project. And wondering whether or not significantly changing the project, if that's what's required, would jeopardize the funding and would jeopardize the project as a whole.
Well, I will, so there's 2 aspects to that. One is timing, which is that these SHIP grants were awarded in previous years. They're older grants, and the state wants to see their money spent. So I understand from Mark's comments that they've said we really need to have final design done and ready to go out to bid by the end of June in order to keep those grants. So we don't have a lot of time to be going back to the drawing board, or potentially those grants could be in jeopardy. In terms of scope of the project, if we're talking very minor modifications, looking at ways to widen the pavement a little bit to increase the turning radius, that I would not expect that to be something that would compromise the grant. We'd still be providing a facility that meets the intent of the original application and really even improving how we're meeting that intent. So I think the
Okay.
timing is the bigger issue.
Okay, thank you.
Amy,
Yes.
just to clarify on your question, and then there really are two parts. One is the Maine Department of Transportation has essentially said the initial grant was made, or it's really not a grant, it's a reimbursement for half of the allowable expenses up to a cap, was approved maybe 6 years ago now. And that was for the ramp and floats at the end of the causeway. That project came in significantly over estimate, and so the bids were rejected and the project was scrapped. Through negotiations, the state allowed that money to be combined with a second grant for the boat launch, because the estimate at that point was that there wouldn't be enough funds to do the boat launch. So the state said, okay, you can take the money from the ramp and floats and you can combine it with the boat launch, and you can go forward and do the boat launch and include the stuff here that was mentioned. About 3 months ago, the Maine Department of Transportation said, you've been tying up almost $500,000 of state money for this project, and it's time to either go forward or we're going to withdraw the grant contract. They indicated to the town that if the project was not to the point of being able to go to bid by July 1, they would withdraw the funding for the project. So that's sort of the one, and I mean, I say this a lot, and I hope I'm right. The staff at the Maine Department of Transportation has been fairly flexible in terms of doing things, and, if Dan said, well, it's going to be July 15th or whatever, I don't think they're going to cut the project off. The second part of the equation is the ability of the town to pay for the project. The amount of reimbursable costs from the Maine Department of Transportation is capped. To make this project feasible 18 months ago, the town said it would raise an additional $150,000 of local money, and the town meeting approved that at that time. There has been ongoing discussions, both at the state level, with staff in the state and with the consultant, about whether the amount of money that is available for what is in the Mitchell Field Capital Reserve account and the state participation through the 2 SHIP grants will be adequate to build the project. Obviously, what's happened over the last 5 months or 6 months may have influenced the cost of doing marine construction in the near term. And so any revisions that either involve potentially more costs, involve needing to go back to DEP or the Army Corps for permit modifications, could in fact scupper the project. That's not to say, from my perspective, that the town should spend a lot of town and state money doing a project that doesn't meet the needs. But it is sort of, from my perspective, the situation of saying, we've come down this road at this point. If there are, I think Dan said minor modifications that would make the facility more usable, there's probably ways to accommodate that, to say we're gonna push the whole ramp out 10 feet more to increase the radius and have to go back to DEP and do more fill and whatever, probably is not feasible within the current timeline and financing available for the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
As Matt said,
Please tell us who you are.
oh, sorry, I should know, Dave Chipman. As Matt was saying, you could come up into here and then back around if you did have a much larger boat, then could go around that circle. So I don't know that we need to change it that much.
Okay, thank you. Margaret?
Well, I have no big boat like that.
Hi, Margaret McIntyre, Codes and Planning. I just have a couple questions about the parking area. Mark mentioned that there's not going to be any lighting. I assume that it's because they can only use this space during kind of daylight hours? And that's something that right now you unlock and lock the gate every day?
Sunrise to sunset.
So it'll continue to be just used during daylight hours with no overnight parking?
There is.
Sorry, I don't know who to ask, you or you.
No, it's a good question. It's a really good question.
We do have an overnight.
Don, do you want to introduce yourself?
Don Miskill, Mitchellfield Stewart. We do have an overnight parking plan authorization right now with the harbor master and the rec department, and it's primarily oriented towards kayakers. They apply online through the harbor master's site on the web, and they get a permit to put in their car so they can park up at that parking area that he showed you. And they are authorized 2 nights maximum. And so with that permit in there, then when the sheriff does his closeout, if he or she sees that permit, they know the car is authorized to be there. So-
And Don?
Yes.
They cannot go in and out of Mitchell Field when the gate is closed.
Correct.
They have to go in and out during daylight hours.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Just authorize the car to park there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So in theory, if you launched a boat, you could apply for an overnight park.
Yeah, you could go to Jewel Island for the weekend,
Correct.
right? Come back, take your boat out of the water. And the other question is about a sidewalk or pedestrian access between the parking spot and the boat launch? Somebody?
Are you asking whether or not there will be a separate sidewalk between the parking lot?
I don't see there's any way for a pedestrian to get from the parking lot down to the boat launch without walking in the road. I don't think there's a sidewalk
I
there,
guess
can't remember.
I guess what I'm wondering is, that's what people do now, so how would it be any,
Because you can park down below, you don't have to park up top,
okay,
right? Well, I don't know, it's just something in site
Yeah.
plan review, you talk about pedestrian access.
absolutely.
Right. People do park up at the truck turnaround, and that's why we mow the sides of the roads, so that if people have to walk, they don't necessarily have to be right on there. The grass is not so tall that they would not want to walk on there. So when we mow the lawns all summer, they do one run down both sides of the main roads and the other roads to keep the grass short so that if they have to, they can walk on that part.
And then my last question, will you explain to us the stormwater drainage up at the top parking?
Yeah, so just generally, there will be 2 new catch basins within the parking area. So there will be low points within the parking area that stormwater would run into and be captured by those catch basins, and then be piped to a low point that's off the
Can you tell us what map you're on?
yes, I'm looking at C04, and I can pull that up here, too.
Okay.
So this is the paved parking area. There would be 2 stormwater catch basins within these painted islands. This one would intercept an existing underdrain, and then there would be a new underdrain and a fall pipe at the low area off the west side of the parking lot.
So is it safe to say that most of the drainage would be surface water drainage? It'll be piped to an existing ditch?
Yeah.
Okay, there will be no direct drainage into the shore waters?
No, it would, this location's very far from
Yes, it is.
the shore, so
Okay,
it would be
thank you.
running over, yeah.
Yep, got it, okay.
Yeah, there are currently, if you drive into that truck turnaround, there are currently existing 2 storm drainage. And they flow into the creek behind it, and then eventually all that flows out.
Yep. Thank you. Margaret, did you have your question answered? Okay. I think just for informational, and I'm sure, I'm looking at our stormwater management expert here, who is behind the scenes, but it's always best not to direct stormwater directly into any water body that's draining directly into coastal waters. So if you can avoid underground drainage, that's always the best thing to do. But that's just for informational purposes now. But anyway.
Actually, no, I'd like to visit that a little bit more.
Okay, let's do it.
Because when Safe Harbor was doing their parking lot, they also have storm runoff, and we had them put a catch basin in that also captured and filtered out any contaminants. So if we made them do that, you know, residual from tires has been known to be a very big toxin for fish of all kinds, and it's done big fish kill-offs. So it sounds benign, but it actually is not. So if it's flushing straight into a catch basin that goes out to the water, that actually is transferring the toxins straight out as well, unless we have some way of capturing the residual.
Well, the catch basin could have a sump in it to clean out sediment and debris that gets trapped in there. But then the outfall wouldn't be going directly into the water. It would be going into the property and running across the surface eventually. So eventually.
So it's not all piped straight out?
It's not piped to the water.
Okay.
That's a really good point, though, Lori. And I would just mention that even with Safe Harbor, with their advanced stormwater filtration system, if we had a big storm, which we do get increasingly, as we all know, if there's enough water in that system, it completely bypasses that entire filtration, which was part of the issue that was raised by yours truly at that meeting. Because you think you're getting something that you might not be getting, especially in the increasingly high rainfall amounts that we've been
had a couple in the
experiencing.
last year.
Yeah, so it's, yeah, Don.
I would say that the majority of Mitchell Field drains into the creeks
Right.
that ultimately flow out on the south side. There's one exit point. But the majority of the field is just grass. So in other words, it's all either filtering into the ground or it's running across the ground for a period of time before it ultimately exits.
Right.
The only hard drainage is the parking lot at the admin building. Those go through a pipe system, but they ultimately exit into that same creek.
Right.
They don't flow directly. And everything else, all the old underground drains from when the tanks were there are all funneled through the creeks. And
Yeah, you can see them still throughout the park
exactly.
today.
The
so-
only culverts we have are under the roads. So there's no more piping system at the field beyond the culverts that were under the roads. Everything else is just flowing across the swale.
Right.
But, you know, to Lori's point, nitrogen pollution from fecal waste, whether it's from birds or dogs, once it gets into that water, nothing takes it up except plants. It goes straight in. It could be a half a mile away. It could be a mile away. And if it gets into that stream water, it goes right out into the salt water, and that's what causes eutrophication. So it's something, this is something, you know, to add another piece to the basket of Mitchell Field is, as Mitchell Field gets more increasingly used, we need to start paying attention to stormwater runoff and all these things.
On the plus side, as a side note, we applied to the Friends of Casco Bay to be able to measure water samples right off Mitchell Field. Our specific purpose was to check for PFAs.
Right.
And initially, we were told that we wouldn't get them, but then Friends of Casco Bay came back last year and said, give us 3 sites. So we are going to be measuring through the Casco Bay water sampling system, 1 site north of the causeway and 2 sites south of the causeway.
That's good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm familiar
Thank you.
with their work. Yeah, because it was just really my concern was those 2 catch basins, because we're loading the parking lot, and there's going to be increased parking there, which means more tire residue. So
Exactly.
the grass area, I agree, PFAS is a concern, so I'm glad they're testing. My concern was really just that 1 parking lot.
It's a really good point, though. It's a very good point. Thank you. Anybody else?
Just a quick question, pardon my ignorance, but the access route there in blue, is that entire thing gravel?
That is gravel, and that will remain gravel. It's not being paved as part of the project.
The only place I, just looking at this, and like everybody said, this is my first meeting, so I am new, but it looks like there's a wet area, according to the map, where you first come on to that access point there, it's kind of, if you look at those dotted
Yeah.
lines, it says wet. Is there any concern that that gravel becomes so saturated during the wet season, the spring, that you can't drive a boat and trailer across it? Because, for example, my boat weighs 48,000 pounds. That's a lot of weight on a gravel road.
So this service road was constructed when we were taking the Pier apart. So it was being used by dump trucks.
Oh, okay.
Completely full.
Okay.
And the only contract change of significance in the whole pier demolition project was that service road right where it joins the main road. They couldn't keep it dry, and it wouldn't support trucks. And that's because the underground storage drains that existed for the tanks, there was a manhole right there. And when we pulled the cover on that manhole, it was like an artesian well. So what they ended up doing was digging down to the bottom of that manhole, and on the lower side of the road, if you will, the west side, there's a swale that runs down. There are 2 pipes that exit from that manhole and drain it so that everything stayed dry, and we were able to use that service road.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah.
All of the pier demolition material went out over that gravel road that was designed to support heavy load.
Yeah, that answers my question perfectly, and it was the answer I was hoping to hear, so.
But that gets us even more to the point. So in order to move water from one place to another, an engineer will want to move it as directly as they can. And that doesn't always mean that's what's best for the environment. It's much better for the little teeny lobsters that are trying to live on the shorefront if they don't have pollutants in the water that they're trying to grow in. And so you want to use the existing topography, the landscape, all the vegetation to try to uptake whatever you can, because it will do the job for you of removing those pollutants. So to the degree that you direct stuff right through into a pipe, you may solve your drainage problem, but you're going to create another problem down the road if you don't think about what the quality of that water is that you're draining directly into the shorefront. So,
And that pipe only exists to get under the road. It then drains into the swale, which runs down before it runs into more swales.
Yep.
And then ultimately flows out to the ocean.
thank you.
And that swale along there was lined with rocks to just slow the whole thing down so as much of it can be absorbed
Okay.
as we can.
Okay. One other question, unless there's someone else that has a question. Just wondering what the long-term use of that gravel road will be, whether you plan to straighten out that bend, or is there any long-range plan for that road? Will it be shifted at all in any way based on future use?
Not at the current time. We haven't had any discussions along that line. The realignment of the Marine Business District, which was approved at last year's town meeting, allows the town to now use that road because they didn't, the oyster growing people did not want to have that road flowing through part of theirs. So the road belongs to us, and if we wanted to realign it at some point, we could.
Okay.
Amy?
Yep.
And the design of the road, when Barney Baker designed it, was to put as much of the road as possible over the portions of the oil tank farm that were the berms, where there was the least potential for there being remnants of the under drainage system, so that you were putting the heavy load on what was, I guess to the extent you can call it that, undisturbed soil when the tank farm was regraded. So there's a reason it was shaped like that. And the lease with the new owners of the oyster hatchery gives them the option to lease the land on the north side of that road up to the northern perimeter road. And so that provides access to the land that is in the Marine Business District. If the town wanted to lease more of the land in the business district, it is the access
To that.
into that district.
Okay. Thank you.
It ultimately keeps a lot of that business-related traffic or the trailer traffic from the people who are trying to go to the beach,
Right.
walking, using picnic tables. That's when we did all this. The other thing, too, that I would add is right in this area right here is wetlands. And so the road had to get around these wetlands.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any further questions? We ready to get down to business? Okay. All right, so one of the first items that we have to really determine is whether the submission is complete. And it appears that the submission is 99.9% complete, but the town planner has said that we probably should consider a waiver of the existing boundary survey, since the entire parcel has been surveyed, but this particular area within the parcel has not. So I'm going to move that the planning board approves the waiver of the submission of a boundary survey and finds that the application of the town of Harpswell, which is us, therefore meets the submission requirements and is in order for consideration by the board. Anyone want to second that? Courtney, second? Okay, second. Thank you very much. All in favor? Thank you. All right, so this application is subject to the standards of Section 15 of the Site Plan Review Ordinance. Section 15 lays out the standards that the application has to meet to be approved. I'm going to move that the planning board finds that the application of the town of Harpswell for the construction of a boat launch, trailer, parking area, and related improvements at Mitchell Field meets the requirements of Section 15 based on the following findings of fact that are incorporated into this motion by reference. And we have findings of fact. Mark, should I just read these through, or can I just, do I need to read them?
And when I prepared this, I messed up in that I pieced stuff together, and in the effort to meet Dan's desire to include everything in one motion, I left off the standard conditions of approval for that motion, because very often they've been at the end, and I clipped them off and then didn't paste them back in. So I gave you a revised motion that repeats what you just said, but adds 5 standard conditions of approval, that the approval is not final until the plan has been signed by the chair of the board,
Yep.
et cetera.
And that's great, but serendipity may have had a hand here. Just because I want to give the board members who are concerned about the movability area a chance to maybe tweak this approval a little bit.
You can do that, but they don't relate to the standard conditions of
Okay.
approval.
All right, so
Those are that you can't change what you're doing from what was approved. You have to meet the state and federal approvals. You have to conform to the best management practices for
Right.
soil erosion.
So I don't need to read any of this material. Okay, so what I would suggest is as I go through these, which are 5 points, if you want to make a condition of approval, that the applicant take a look at whether or not this parking area can be widened at all without jeopardizing the grant approval, that they be allowed to do that after meeting with the codes office and the planner and the Mitchell Field committee.
And you would do that as condition 6 if you wanted to do that.
Thank you, Mark. All right. Okay,
Madam
you need to,
Chairman, or the other way we could do it is to consider those changes to be de minimis changes as determined by the town planner.
Yeah.
That's true.
We always
Right.
say that.
That is true.
Whatever.
As long as we
That's
know
the
what we're
answer I
talking
was
about.
looking for.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to say approve it as is with, I'm going to say sort of instruction to me to meet with the town's engineer and the Mitchell Field Committee, and maybe Mac as a representative of the board to look at what could be done within reason to improve the usability of the turnaround, to get larger boats in, do it, and we'll do that.
Okay?
Yeah,
All
I'd
right.
like something to be noted, because if you just say de minimis changes, I don't know all of that Mark just
Spell it
said.
out better.
So, right, I would like it, spelled out to the best of the ability of GEI to
Okay.
be able to enlarge it without messing up the timing, messing up the funding, to make it more usable. That would be great.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is what we have been talking about, the suggested tweaks or modifications. None of those affect the findings of fact that we have done in terms of meeting the terms of the ordinance.
Right.
Is that correct?
Essentially, yes.
Okay. So our findings of fact can remain the same. We don't, that doesn't, adding that additional provision doesn't affect accepting the findings of fact.
It doesn't, but I would suggest that we have revised drawings, because the town needs to know what's on the lay of the land. It has to have that happen.
That's what's gonna be fun.
Because otherwise, someone will come back 5 years later and not find accurate drawings. So we need to make sure that whatever drawings we approve are accurate drawings. Mr. Planner.
I would go back and suggest that you add a sixth condition of approval, which is that the town's engineer be asked to review the design of the turning circle at the end of the approach to the boat launch to see if its usability can be increased in ways that do not impact either the funding for the project or the pending state and federal approvals, and that the signature of the chair be withheld until a revised plan be submitted showing any revisions to the plan considered at this meeting.
Okay, all right, got it.
You can live with that, can't you? Okay.
I move, unless there's further discussion? Okay, good. Okay, I move that the planning board finds that the application of the town of Harpswell for the construction of a boat launch trailer parking area and related improvements at Mitchell Field meets the requirements of Section 15 based on the following findings of fact that are incorporated into this motion by reference. This approval is subject to the following conditions of approval. Number 1, this approval is not final until such time as final plans showing all conditions of approval and any waivers granted have been signed by the chair of the planning board. Number 2, this approval is based on the approved plans and on all submission and information provided by the applicant at final approval, whether referenced in any findings or conditions of approval. 3, this approval is dependent upon and limited to the proposal and plans contained in the application and supporting documents submitted and affirmed to by the applicant. Any variations from the plans, proposals, and supporting documents except de minimis changes as determined by the town planner that do not affect approval standards is subject to the review and approval of the planning board prior to implementation. Number 4, the applicant shall obtain all necessary state and federal approvals before the applicant commences any kind of land use activity pursuant to this site plan approval and shall comply with the requirements of those permits and approvals. 5, all work shall be completed in accordance with best management practices for soil erosion and sedimentation control. 6, the town engineer shall be asked to review the design of the turning radius at the end of the approach to the boat launch to determine if its usability can be increased in a manner that does not impact the funding of the project or state and federal approval, and that the signature of the chair be withheld until the revised plan is submitted.
Good job.
I will second that.
All in favor? All right, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Cheers for reading that back.
Oh.
Quickly.
All right, thank you, and good luck, Harpswell.
Exciting.
Yes, we're not ready, we're not ready. I'm ready to pack up and go home. Okay, other
We're almost
business.
done. We got 2 more.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Getting excited.
My wine is waiting. Okay, so item 4, other business, consideration of the minutes from April 17th and 24th, 2024 meetings. We just got those. I have not reviewed them. They're very brief. Okay. You get a gold star.
It's my first one. Yeah, I reviewed them and I saw no issues whatsoever
Okay,
with them at all.
Margaret?
I got something to say when you guys are done.
All right, well, I guess I would ask the board if they would like to approve the plan based on
You mean the minutes?
the minutes, based on Dan's review. We're going to place this all in your
I
lap,
think,
Dan.
we can trust him, I think.
I think we can.
Yeah.
I'll move that we approve the minutes for, where are we? April 17th and April 24th.
Yeah,
Second, third.
I'm in
Alright.
favor of that.
All those in favor? Thank you, Dan. Planners update.
Really fast, I just wanted to remind everybody that the June meeting is going to be on the 26th.
26?
Yes, the regularly scheduled meeting is Juneteenth. So
Oh.
last year, we
You guys
opted.
are off. You guys are off.
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think so. So last year, we opted to change the meeting to the 26th. And
Okay.
I just wanted to know when we're going to have the site walk. Are we gonna have it the regularly scheduled day, or are we gonna have it the Monday before the meeting?
What's on the agenda?
Nothing yet.
Okay.
You don't know until 4 o'clock on
Right.
Wednesday afternoon.
Plus,
It
this,
would-
this month has an extra Wednesday, so the paperwork deadline's really a week later than it normally
Oh,
is.
June 20, I was thinking of the special meeting that we
No,
have.
no,
No, that's
Juneteenth.
Juneteenth.
Juneteenth, the holiday.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So the next meeting is June 26th.
Yes.
Okay.
And I want to know when you wanna have the site walks.
So just for, I'm gonna get the calendar out, so everybody, Margaret sprung this one on me. I didn't think about it.
Well,
Good for her.
So normally they would be, if it was on the 19th, we'd have it on the 10th. But if we have the meeting on the 26th, then we could have them on the 10th, or we could have it on the 17th, which is the Monday before the meeting.
What makes your job easier?
I don't care at all.
I'm out of town on the 17th.
So
I'm
let's
out
do the
of town
10th.
in June, so
Let's
it
do
doesn't
the
matter
10th.
to me when you have the sidewalk.
So we say June 10th?
Sure.
Okay, June 10th.
My birthday, guys, that'll be a party.
Oh, really? You're a Gemini. Mine's June 12th. So, okay.
All right,
All right,
thank you.
June 10th is a site walk, and I just want to remind everybody also that next Wednesday is the public hearing for
Yes.
the, no, it's not? Isn't it May?
29th.
No, it's May 22nd.
Nine.
Isn't it May 29th? Okay, thank you.
2
Thank you,
weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks tonight.
What's happening on the 22nd?
Well, it was originally.
We were
gonna be
supposed to,
scheduled
yeah,
on the
okay.
But there's a Board of
22nd.
Appeals meeting.
Thank you.
And we're still, I'll wait till the planners report.
I would like to know
Are
what's
you,
going
oh,
on.
okay,
I was
thanks.
gonna ask
Thank you, Margaret.
Is that meeting on the 29th here?
No,
The
at the
meeting
Harpswell
on
Island.
the 29th is at the
School.
school. It will be the same format as the last time. There will be an open house from 5:30 to 6:30
Yeah.
with proposed flood insurance rate maps. And Margaret and Tim will be there to answer people's questions. The regular meeting or the special meeting of the planning board will then start at 5:30. I'm sorry, 6:30.
6:30, thank you. It's been a
And
long
that
night.
will be to hold 3 public hearings, although the agenda that you get may say 4. And they will be on the revised floodplain management ordinance, which I will discuss in a minute, on the proposed ordinance dealing with ADUs, and the proposed ordinance amendment dealing with the conversion of a single-family house into 2 units.
Yeah.
There will also be an item on there, on the agenda, about amending the definitions addendum to add definitions related to commercial fishing. That is recommended by the town's legal counsel not to go forward at this time. And so I think the sense is that that would be what's happening. Want to go on to planner's update?
Yes, please.
The town and various other interests have been involved in, I would call it, somewhat vigorous negotiations with the staff of the floodplain management office in Augusta and FEMA. The director of that said they had met with FEMA yesterday in Boston, and they will provide us with a revised ordinance of a new floodplain management, a revised version of the new floodplain management ordinance that will delete the requirement for professional engineering review of town wharves, of wharves and piers, and allow the town to essentially define who can do that.
You mean who can build those?
No, who can review, the area of discussion is the language in, I'm doing this from memory, but Matt, it's section Q that says that if you're in the VE zone, the design of a wharf or pier has to be reviewed by
The velocity.
a professional engineer. The state and FEMA apparently, now understand this is sort of secondhand, have agreed that an oversight of those piers and wharfs will only be required if it's a permanent wharf, and there's been some discussion about that, and that it doesn't have to be a professional engineer. It will be I forget the term.
Design professional.
A design,
Or, I think it's,
no, it's not design. Anyhow, I'm drawing a blank, but it will be, that term will not be defined, and the town can interpret that term to be someone who is experienced in marine construction.
So it could be Redfish and Associates, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Some of the other things, the 200 square
Yeah.
foot on, I don't think they're gonna budge on that one. And I think they're
Yeah.
gonna, also on the one about the impact of essentially shoreline projects on increasing the flood elevation. I think, again, the same thing will be that the town can have anybody do that. I've gone through this thing of, I don't understand how installing riprap is going to increase the flood elevation of the Atlantic Ocean, but, I mean, I can understand if you're doing certain things, you may have very localized impacts. In a river, if you're doing it and you impede river inflow, that increases the flood elevation upstream. But Dave putting in a riprap isn't going to probably increase the flood elevation of his next door neighbor, but that's what's there. So, go ahead.
When can I ask a question about one of the things you said?
Right now.
When you were saying that they were not probably going to budge on the size of the building? Are we saying that if there's a 200 square foot building that got knocked down, that it can't be put back?
I
At
think
that
the answer
size?
to that question is, I don't think the town is gonna say no to that. I think we have,
FEMA's saying no. right?
well, no, we applied the ordinance. I think the town's position, and I'm gonna defer to Margaret on this, that whatever was there,
Okay.
you can rebuild.
Okay.
Mark's right as far as shoreline zoning goes, but the FEMA floodplain management ordinance is totally different. And so I asked Sue Baker if somebody did lose a fish house, would they have to go to planning board for conditional use? And she basically said yes, because it is a new structure. It was pre-existing, but the structure itself is new, so you have to go through the same process like it was a new structure, from what I understand.
So essentially, if you lose a fish house and it's over 200 square feet, you're never getting it back.
Well, see, I was thinking you'd be able to
Essentially, yes,
replace
I
what
believe
was
so.
there.
Yeah.
That was
Only
basically
through
my
the
question.
FEMA ordinance, through shoreline zoning ordinance, you totally would be able to, because it was pre-existing.
Right,
And we don't care about the size in shoreline zoning, but
right.
So there'd be no FEMA coverage then.
Yeah, so
But
they're
there's no
just-
FEMA coverage to begin with on
Yeah.
commercial
So it's
structures.
a moot
Right.
point.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around.
I
Like,
don't
why
get
even
it.
address it if it's a mute point to begin with?
Yeah, I
You
don't
know
get
what I
it,
mean?
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like, maybe somebody with more experience can speak to that, but to the new guy, that seems just,
It
Yeah,
doesn't
it
seem to
doesn't-
make sense to me.
thank
either.
you, all right.
Doesn't make sense to me. I would just want to ask
I
the
feel
board,
better.
Is there any point in us meeting before the 29th in a workshop?
Well, when are we gonna see this? I'm a
To-
little,
to
I
let-
mean, we had, I felt
Friday.
kind of blindsided
I did
Yeah.
at
too.
the last
That's
thing,
why
because
I'm
it was
asking
really
this.
long,
Yeah,
and I didn't even know there was any wiggle room.
right, that's why I'm asking the question. I don't want us to get
Yeah.
blindsided again, so I'm just laying it out there, like, do we want to have a workshop to just talk about this and make sure that we know what the changes are and we can
Speak to them.
we can speak intelligently to what the questions that are asked.
Let me answer two of the questions. One of the questions is, when will we see it? And you will see it when we see it.
Oh, push on them.
Sue, oh, God, push on them.
we've been assured it's gonna be Friday.
They have said we should have it by Friday.
Yeah.
So like the 22nd, which we all originally had on our calendars.
Yeah,
I mean, I would like to see something that shows what could be taken away. That's what I would like to see, is what is
The differences
mandatory.
between, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
mandatory and what
Yeah,
they
What's
would
the
like to
bare
see.
minimum? That's what, yeah,
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
It's
it
the
was
most
marked in a
basic.
different color or something.
yeah.
Yeah. What
Like,
it
we're going
was
to
and
change
what is
this.
the proposed change would be helpful to me.
Right. I mean, if
I
we
just
have
want
to have it,
everyone to
that's one thing.
understand that the 200 square foot limit is in the current town ordinance and has been in place for years. So this is not a new requirement.
that may well be true.
No, I'm just saying.
No, and that, I'm not, that not maybe, that is true. However, there may be a new response to that existing requirement. I just think the board needs to understand what the new response might be.
Yeah, and Sue Baker from the state will be at the meeting on the 29th to answer questions about their perspective of why these things are done.
And that's great, but this is our ordinance. And I'm glad she'll be there, and she should be there. But this is our ordinance, and we need to be able to understand it and either defend it or say, we don't agree with it here or there, and, because we're recommending it to the select board. And if we're gonna recommend it to the select board, we need to do our jobs. So if we can meet on the 22nd, or, you know, I think that I'm getting a consensus that board wants
I
to
can
get
do the
together
22nd.
and.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
You can meet on the 22nd.
Wait,
Okay.
there's already a comp plan meeting, and there's already a Board of Appeals meeting.
On the 22nd?
Yes.
Okay.
at the same time, or at the same.
And the Board of Appeals meeting is at what time?
6:30.
And the
In
comp
this
plan
room.
meeting is at what time?
Comp plan, anybody? Comp
I
plan?
think it's that, you would know. Come on.
I wanna
what
say
time
it's
do we
at
meet
6.
next Wednesday? I wanna say 6 too. It's usually,
So
it's
the
usually
planning
6.
board
Yeah,
will meet
yeah.
at 5. You
Yeah.
often have done workshops
the
at
workshop.
5, which would give you an hour before
we
the
6?
comp plan meeting.
Wait, are you talking about comp plan, Matt?
Yeah, comp plan was 6.
6.
So we could do 5.
We could, can you do 5?
Yeah.
There's a,
I think.
a marine resource meeting at 5.
Well, we could meet upstairs, or we
Comp
could
plan
meet,
at 6, Board of Appeals at 6:30.
We could meet in that-
Wednesdays
what
are
about that
we
Fridays.
could meet in
over
the
there.
small room.
Yeah.
We've met with the filing cabinets before upstairs.
We could,
Which one?
What'd you say, Mary
Comp
Ann?
plan's gonna be upstairs.
yeah, we could meet at a table outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's nice out by
They
the.
are?
Yeah, let's meet at the itty bitty coffee shop.
Yeah.
Would bad weather bother you?
No, I live in it.
I think we need to find a place to meet,
And
and I
who's-
think it can only be Wednesdays, because that's what we've,
Okay,
you
Yeah.
know,
So-
that's the problem. We just have to find a time and a place.
And who's meeting at 5?
Marine resources in this meeting.
And
You guys
is-
can have that.
What about
meeting.
the small room over
You guys
there?
can have the side room at 5.
Yeah.
Totally.
We'll take
Yeah.
that one.
okay, let's take the small room, May 22nd at 5 in the small conference room.
Okay, so.
I just have one question for Mark. Have we gotten a number of the people who have flood policies in the town?
Sue Baker said she was going to provide that to Christie. I have not seen it.
I have another question. As somebody that last time was on the other side of the table, and this time is gonna be on the opposite. As a member of the public, I'm concerned that this new ordinance is gonna come out on Friday, and the public has, 10 days to review it themselves? Isn't there supposed to be a 30-day period?
No.
Not for this?
No, the state, for changes in ordinances, the only state requirement is the notice of the public hearing be provided 13 days in
Okay.
advance or twice. Once at least 13 days in advance, and the second time not sooner than 7 days before the hearing. And the town has advertised those public hearings and will meet that. The 30 days is for the comprehensive plan.
All right.
Well, in that regard, there was some discussion at the last meeting about being unable to find a copy of the ordinance.
That's where I was gonna go next.
Yeah, okay. Is there a way that we can link that directly from the front page?
It already is.
It is. The current draft is and has been since the last meeting.
It's been there, and we're gonna make our best effort to try to get out the word, you know, probably through Facebook at least. We have, we can notify people on our website. And if anybody's worried about getting notified, they should definitely sign up for the town
Yeah.
email listserv.
Oh, I did that.
I
I'm
did
gonna
as
get
soon as it came out.
So many ways,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
We have a TV station too.
Mhm.
Put it on a pole.
So
yeah,
the
the
answer
communication
is,
content.
as soon as we get it from the state, it will be put on the website and linked to and.
Perfect.
Just so you know, I'm on the website now. I click on that link, draft floodplain management ordinance, and it says the page cannot be found.
Okay.
Oh, good that you checked. It's good that you checked.
Oh, I got it.
What's wrong with me? Look,
It doesn't like you, Matt.
I know. Every time I clicked on
Floodplain
Yeah.
information?
see details, draft floodplain, the page cannot be found. It doesn't like me.
No, I got it too.
Oh, all right. I'm not alone.
Yeah. No, I didn't click all the way as far as you did.
Oh, okay.
So, okay, we have work to do, I guess, huh?
Well, I
I
think,
feel better now. Thanks.
He's not the only one.
Yeah.
Misery loves company.
I didn't want to say it, but you're right, Don.
is he misery or am I misery?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What,
Do we have
anything
any,
further, Mark?
are
I
we,
have nothing further.
okay, so,
Except that I will not be at the meeting on the 22nd. I'm
Okay.
on vacation next week.
Oh, good for you.
Margaret, can you be at the meeting on the 22nd?
Sure can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to summarize, we have a meeting on May 22nd at 5 o'clock in the small conference room.
Yeah.
We have a meeting on May 29th at the school, starting at 5:30 with an open house. We have a meeting on June 10th, which will be a site walk. And our next planning board meeting is June 26th.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, rock on, baby. Let's do it.
Lots of meetings.
Lots of meetings. And we get paid so well to do all of this.
I had a meeting
Yeah.
last night, too.
I'm gonna
Okay,
retire with all my money.
Okay, I call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.